if there's no meaning to it, or if you're looking for an end, you'll probably quit, right? Like if you start with fitness just because, everybody else is doing it and you just want to not be the person in the group that doesn't look as good, you're not going to last.
Right.
You're just doing it for weird reasons rather than like, I really want to do this for me because I want to be healthy.
Real business owner.
Whatever your situation is currently is not your forever situation.
That's really what real business owners is, man. Like, we don't care where you come from. Where are you going?
Our goal and our job is to reduce the mistakes that you have to make or the money that you have to lose.
You want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be successful, don't give up.
You learn, adjust, and continue to move forward.
Welcome back to another episode of the Real Business Owners Podcast. Hello, everybody. It's me again and Trevor. Kale and Trevor.
Us again, coming through.
Kilo, Trev Dog.
Well, I would say welcome to another badass version of the Real Business Owners Podcast because we have sunshades on.
I know, dude. We're really cool today.
It feels fucking cool, dude. I don't care who you are. When you put on a nice pair of shades, you feel cooler. When you put on a brand new pair of shoes, you feel cooler.
I never wear them, dude. I bought these for that wedding in my backyard because the sun was so bright. And I was like, I do need to start wearing them more, though, because my wife's been pointing out my crow's feet and shit. And I'm like, you know what? I've never been a sunglass wearer because I always lose them. But I'm going to try not to lose this pair. And if I don't lose them, maybe I'll buy a nice pair. Like these are just $75 Quays.
Maybe I'm going to get rid of sunglasses because I think the crow's feet on dudes look cool.
Yeah, I'm going for the George Clooney
if you're
look. I'm waiting for my hair to turn gray.
Well, if you watch Yellowstone, dude, what's his name? What's the main character's name in Yellowstone?
No, the dad, dude. It's
God, it ain't Kurt Russell. It's the same thing, though. Those guys grew up in the same era. But God, who is it?
I'm drawing a blank. He's one of the biggest actors ever. I can't remember his name, dude. It's because you asked.
I know. By the end of this podcast, I'm going to see if our brains figure it out.
Remembering celebrities' names is not our strength.
It was mine in that one game. No, it was the morning routine.
Oh,
their morning routine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the little crow's feet look. It looks like experience.
What's his name, Nick?
What's his name? Tell me.
Kevin
Costner.
Yeah.
What did I say?
All the chicks love him.
Kurt
Russell.
Same thing.
Old dogs.
Same thing.
Bruce Willis.
Same guy. They could have all played the character because of their crow's feet.
They're all in Die Hard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably. Mission Impossible, Die Hard, something. I don't know.
That's exactly what we're going to talk about a little bit today because we were talking about it yesterday. Was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago. And we were talking about, because I've read a couple books on this, right? Well, this book I'm reading right now just kind of highlights on it. But I've read this book called Strength Finder 2.0, and Trevor and I were talking about it, and Trevor's like, I struggle with that because, the whole concept of the book is quit trying to double down on your weaknesses and double down on your strengths because that's where you're going to get more success in your life and whatever you're trying to succeed at. If you are just naturally, your natural abilities are stronger in certain areas, but you're always trying to increase your weaknesses, like you're going to be far less successful than if you double down on your strengths. That's kind of the concept of the book. And Trev was like, well, and he's kind of,
I said, I've always
not
had a
disagreeing with it, but you don't fully agree with it, right?
I have my qualms with it, right? My issues. I think everybody listening to the podcast has heard, the variation of somebody say, hey, double down on your strengths, right? Hire somebody that's whatever with your weaknesses.
Right.
And the issue that I have with this is there's so many things that I had labeled as a weakness, right? That I just didn't give any time or attention to. I didn't give effort or intent to try to be great or good at that thing. So therefore, since I really didn't give it intent or effort, I shouldn't expect to be good at that thing.
Yeah.
But when I did give it true effort, I ended up becoming good at that thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I have a tough time because some people will just label themselves as, oh, that's a weakness. Like that, this book I read said, don't do that because I'm just not good at that.
Yeah.
Like what if somebody's weakness is running?
Right.
But they've never really tried to become a runner.
Right.
Or the example that I gave you as a reader, right? And I guarantee you there's a lot of people listening to this that could vibe with this. And I know Kale was the exact same way when he first tried to combat the old version of Kale that didn't read and turn the version of Kale that he is today into a reader, right? he would open up a book just like me. You would go down, scroll through the page.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the bottom. You read every word, but nothing hits.
Right.
You don't even remember what you just read or what it's trying to. So you start at the top and you do it again. And you do that 2 or 3 times. You shut the book and throw it off to the side and say, I'm not a reader.
Right.
Okay. You labeled yourself as that. Therefore, you're going to live up to that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I did that. And it was when somebody said, no, I'm not a reader. I don't read. I'll do podcasts or I'll do this or I'll do. I'm more of a visual or, of course I was more of a visual because that was the easier route to go down to try to get information because for me, reading was hard. Now, is it a weakness because it's hard? That's really the question. No, it was a weakness because I never tried to do it.
Right. People don't know what their weaknesses are until they explore, right?
Correct.
So I think that there is, and I can't remember, dude, Strength Finder 2.0 was actually a book I read years ago, and it did open my eyes, and there's a whole personality test you take in there, which will tell you the gist of like areas that your strengths you're in and then what your weaknesses are in, and so, and it's broken down into like, maybe you're a weak communicator, but you're a strong, I don't know. I can't
action
even remember.
taker.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
You're heavy on taking action, but you don't communicate.
But it doesn't give you like fine tune, like, well, you're a bad communicator in writing, but you're great at speak. Like, it doesn't break it down in fine details, right?
General.
It's kind of like these general things. These are your strengths. These are your weaknesses. This is kind of what you should double down on. But, some of the analogies that it gives in there make really great points. Okay. So first of all, when you identify what a weakness is, you can improve it. It's just you can only improve it to a certain level. But if you have a natural ability that's a strength, you can increase that by doubling down on it by tenfold, right? And so you take somebody like maybe a Tom Brady or something, right? Like if he would have doubled down to be a better runner, right? Like he can get better. He can get faster through workouts and strength training and all these things, right? But he can't get to a Derrick Henry level of speed or some shit. You know what I mean?
He's not
going to be a receiver. He's not going to be a running back.
He's
but
not
he
going to
can
be a
double
Michael Vick
down.
of a quarterback
Right.
or one of the ones that can scramble or whatever.
His strengths are communicating. His strengths are leadership. His strengths are in his arm. You know what I mean? So he doubles down on his strengths of like leading this team and obviously becomes one of the greatest, right? But he didn't spend his time working out trying to become faster than his receivers and his running backs. And you know what I mean? Like he focused on doubling down on strengths. And so that was kind of the concept. And that's my own analogy to Tom Brady. That's not in the book.
Yeah.
But that's the concept of the book is like, you can improve your weaknesses, but you're going to spend so much time trying to go from a 3 to a 4 when you could go from an 8 to a fucking 15. You know what I mean? In where you're strong, where your natural abilities are.
Is what you're saying. You're taking the same amount of effort to get strong on your weak area, which is going to, yes, you'll move the needle, but this you'll move the entire universe and shift your abilities completely in terms of the area that you're already strong.
Exactly.
And so, but earlier I was talking about reading, going down, shutting the book. I'm not a reader. I read every single day now. So now I am a reader. What used to be a weakness of mine is now a strength of mine, right?
And an enjoyment and all these things, right?
It's
and you're getting better at it. And you're like, I'm reading multiple books at a time. I would never have done that before. Ever.
Let alone one.
Right. Right.
Picking up one was, something that was very, very uncommon probably just 4 or 5 years ago, right? And now you're reading multiple books, right? So you've turned something that was a weakness into your strength. And so, and we talked about this prior to hopping on. Look, my older brother, he's an amazing artist. He's great with he could take what's in his mind and put it on a piece of paper with detail. Right? Like I could see a horse in my mind and it's going to have stick legs and a circle body and a circle head with a couple ears. Like that's my extent. Yeah. And so I understand what it's trying to say, and I have issues with it. And so I think that there's certain things like, if I double down on basketball at 5'7", am I going to make there's a probability that it may happen. It's highly unlikely, no matter how much time or effort that I put in, that I may not play in the league at 5'7". Now, have there been people to do it? Absolutely. Is it possible? Yes. The amount of time, effort, and consistency that I'd have to put in for even it to become a slight possibility would be massive. But the same effort that I would use to try to become a professional NBA player doing something different. Maybe I took that same time and effort and focused on becoming the best marketer in the entire world, or the best salesperson in the entire world, because I have a natural gift of gab in terms of my ability to communicate with other people. So if I took the same effort that I take over here trying to become an NBA basketball player at 5'7" and came over here to become the best salesman in the world or the best marketer in the world, I'm probably going to see far more success in my life in that area, and the probability of success is way great because I'm already good at communicating, but how can I get better at it? So I understand it in some areas, but the one thing that I get frustrated by is I just don't want people to utilize that as an excuse not to do the thing that they're weak at, that just they could be good if they did it, but because it's difficult, they pull back.
It's difficult and you don't enjoy it. So there's that saying, like, you know, people like what they're good at. You know what I mean? And so that's a first telltale sign of, like, maybe what are some strengths, right? Like, you know, like, I didn't ever know I was going to be good at sales, dude. Like, I was a construction worker with my dad. We actually made fun of some of the telemarketing guys in town that we knew that were acting like big times. And, you know, I was like, you know, whatever. I couldn't believe it. Actually took a weird, like, humble position to be like, you know, that whole trip to Vegas with the buying the car and, you know, with Jeremy Johnson and his dudes and, like, flashing all the money. I was like, it took this really weird moment for me, like, I should just try it, right? Well, I was good at it fast. Like, I was making double what I was making as a construction worker really quickly. And so I liked it.
Natural knack for sales.
Yeah, I had no idea, and I never thought I would be. And then, like, all of a sudden I liked it, right? And since I liked it, I invested more into it. But you're right. Like, if you are trying to invest into something that you really don't like and you're immediately just labeling it as, like, a weakness, that's wrong too, right? Because you don't know if you're going to be a great reader until you actually sit down and read and get better at it. Everything takes practice, right? So we never enjoyed reading. We never enjoyed reading. It was like we weren't that type of personality. We weren't trying to feed our brains. Now we have a more motivation for it because why? We want to give more content. We want to give more value. We want to learn more. We want to lift up our employees, take our businesses to the next level, all these things. So now we're reading, but we have a reason for the reading. So then we're finding out we enjoy it. And then we're finding out, oh, we're actually pretty good at it. I'm actually retaining more. I'm reading multiple books now. I'm grasping things. I'm reading quicker, right? So, but we had to get to a point where it's like we wanted to improve at that because it was going to enhance all these other areas of our life. Therefore, you kind of enjoy it.
Will you Google real quick, Nick, the chemical that's released in your brain for learning? So what you just barely described, how Kel just said, well, the reason why we do it now is because we could tie it to some things that are meaningful. We can extract information and we can give it to other people. And we could serve at a higher level. We're becoming greater for our business and our employees and ourselves and our families, right? And so it wasn't necessarily just reading just because we just want to kill time. Right? We tied it to something that was of importance. So therefore, we were able to overcome this thing that used to be a weakness because we knew if we overcome this weakness that we could become greater. Glutamate? There's a different one. I'm just drawing a blank right now. There's another one in the brain book. But what it states is, if this chemical does not exist in the mind while you're trying to learn, you will not learn. And this chemical is only released when you tie it to something that is of meaning to you. And so when your kids are sitting in a classroom and it's boring as hell, and they're just like, I can't retain anything. When the book example that I gave earlier, I'm going down it and not retaining anything, and I shut it. And then I do that again. But I wasn't really tying it to much. I was trying to become better as a human, right? Like, I wanted to learn how to read because I felt dumb because I didn't read a lot. And people that I looked up to said, reading is good for you. So I'm like, oh, well, they said reading is good for you. I should at least put some effort towards that to see if I can get value out of that, right? And eventually, what they basically said is if you're having a tough time studying or whatever for an exam, you have to constantly remind yourself why you're doing it in the bigger picture so that that chemical release. And what happens is the plasticity in that area of your brain softens up so that the information can soak absorb in greater. And if that chemical does not exist in that moment, the information that you're being fed, because it doesn't excite you or it's not tied to something meaningful to you, it just doesn't absorb. Right.
Makes total sense.
And what you were saying, hey, well, we tied it to this and that's exactly
like, bro, I'll
what
never
it is.
read a Harry Potter book. I used to see those kids in like, even when I was out of high school, but you see the nerdy kids, like, do you just sit down and read for hours a Harry Potter book or a romance novel? It's like, there is no meaning to me for that, right? Like, I don't read to just
kill time.
Read because I thoroughly enjoy reading. I like to read things that I'm genuinely interested in improving, you know what I mean, in our life, and that makes total sense.
Dude, and look, here's the deal. There's some people that don't have the same brains as us, and they like more of a fantasy land or whatever. It's kind of a getaway, and they get to go into the book and go, and I'm 100% cool with that, because at least they're reading versus watching TV or
and they that might be their strength. Like maybe they are a creative, and maybe they are amazing storytellers, and by reading these
kicks that up.
Fiction novels and things like that, like, well, then maybe that helps them enhance their life because it gives them the ability to become more of a creative storyteller.
Well, obviously they're tying some sort of meaning to it, because that's why they're into it. Like the question, and really that's what it comes down to for anything. And if there's no meaning to it, or if you're looking for an end, you'll probably quit, right? Like if you start with fitness just because everybody else is doing it, and you just want to not be the person in the group that doesn't look as good, you're not going to last. Right. You're just doing it for weird reasons rather than like, I really want to do this for me because I want to be healthy. Anytime that it's for the wrong reasons, that chemical's not going to exist, and we're not going to learn or follow through or do the things 100%. That we know that we should be doing. And that's why it's so important to understand the whys behind what it is that you're doing, right?
I think that's a huge part of it. But I think, honestly, we are all wired in similar ways, but we are all wired differently. And some of it's genetics, and some of it's personality, and some of it's all these things, right? Yeah. There is a way to figure out, like, what your strengths are and make those better decisions, right? But you do have to be disciplined enough in your own mind or your own self-awareness to be like, well, am I bad at reading? Am I bad at these things? Or do I just not like it because it's hard? Could I actually be really, really great at it if I quit being lazy and quit labeling it? You know what I mean? There is all those factors. And just like, man, when I was talking to Jeff Desharm not too long ago, I'm like, dude, I actually really want, so the new book I've been reading is The 4-Hour Workweek. I never read that book. I know it's an old classic, but he starts hitting on that, about how that changed the game for him by delegating and outsourcing to where he could finally just be more of like the copywriting, whatever, for his brand. And it took his company BrainQuicken to like way new heights. And yet, even though he went from doing way less in his business and only focused on what he was good at in his business and what he liked, it gave that business so much ability and so much. It scaled so rapidly that he ended up getting gobbled up and purchased, right? And it was like this crazy awakening for him that he was like, man, I was just sick of being owned by my business, and I wanted to travel the world and do all these amazing things. And so finally I get to a point of like, screw it. I'm delegating all this out. I'm only going to work on this area that I like, and I'm going to go travel the world. He moved to Europe for 1.5 years, and he's just literally was doing the only one thing for his business, which is the thing he liked and the thing he was the best at, and boom, his business exploded, right? And so I'm like, okay, but he didn't know that until he knew it, right? Like
no, he didn't know it because he tolerated it for a long enough period of time, and you said
he was doing 15-hour days to go into 4 or 5 hour weeks, you know?
Right? So he got so sick of it that change ensued.
Yeah.
Right? I think people are ignoring the things that they're sick of. They're not paying attention enough to their life to understand what's bogging them down.
Right.
I think individuals, as long as they hurry right in the moment that they're not doing something, go straight to the phone or go straight to the TV or go straight. So somewhere to distract the mind to where they're not having to think.
Right.
Right. There are, I guarantee, 3 or 4 things that everybody that's listening to this has the ability to remove from their life so that they can free themselves of these weird mental shackles that we don't even know that we're carrying around because we're not asking ourselves those questions. Because right when we have the free opportunity to really sit with ourselves and say, what is it in life right now that's causing me the most stress or pain or angst or, what? In that guy's situation, he got so fed up that he made a very, very extreme change. The question is what are you fed up with right now that you're not changing?
Right.
What is it really going to take for you to get your health in order, or your business in order, or your personal finances in order, or your relationship in order? When are you going to invest the time that you need to invest in the area that you're weak?
Right.
Instead of investing the time, your free time, in areas that distract the mind from all of your weaknesses.
Right.
This is a big distraction game, and people need to get rid of the distractions and go inward and say, something's causing me angst, pain, or struggle right now. It doesn't matter who it is, what it is, how it, figure out what it is and start subtracting. Free the load from your shoulders and subtract 2 or 3 things from your life.
Right.
Whether it's, going out every single weekend, do it once a month, right? Like, start making those micro changes in the areas that will serve you.
Yeah.
And over a long enough period of time, 1 micro change will turn into 2, then turn into 3, then turn into 4. And the next thing you know, 12 years later, you have a podcast with homie and you're crushing it, right? So 1 incremental change leads to a lot of amazing things. But if you don't change, nothing has the ability to change. Do not discount 1 minor change in what it has the ability to do in your entire life.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And here's the thing, man. If you're running an organization, you got a lot of people in your organization. Here was an aha that I had from reading this book. And the whole reason I even brought this topic up to you the other day was because I'm sitting here listening to this audiobook of the 4-Hour Work Week. And then I physically read the old book, Strength Finder 2.0. Yeah. In that book, there's a personality test, right, that you can take to identify strengths to double down on. But this guy's just telling a story in his audiobook of like what he did, and really it came down to him doubling down on his strengths. But then I started thinking about all the people in our company, and I'm like, okay, we need to do that personality test that Jeff's HR company presented to us. That was my aha moment. And then that's the whole reason I ended up deciding to want to maybe talk about it on a podcast, because I'm like, we need to know, and you need to be open-minded to that, because like, take Tyler. He's just been with us for a long time, and he's been badass at whatever he's done. Yeah. But like, what if he's not the best at running a team and he's better at systems and processes, for example? I don't know. Yeah. But maybe that personality test will help us identify that a little bit more. And that's what the whole point of it is.
Well, isn't that what we're doing right now as we speak? We're literally just putting people in positions to where they can thrive. Right. And creating.
And we are pretty good. We both have a skill of seeing like things that people are naturally good at. So I think we're spot on in areas, but like maybe our higher level leadership teams, like maybe we can identify little things where we can actually like put them in a better position to win, because we took this test and we figured out like, dude, you're actually better at you're good at these things, and you're not great at these things, but you're really naturally gifted at these things. How can we double down? Not only are they going to win more, but our entire company's going to win more, right? And so I'm like, man, maybe we need to do that, because I remember that personality test, and I remember like, and this guy's like kind of bringing it back to the service through his audiobook, and then we not too long ago had the opportunity to do that person. I'm like, man, maybe we need to do all of that just so we can double down on more strengths.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's about extracting data. We'd be absolute idiots to believe that, what we think to be true is 100% actual truth, right? And when you live a life like that, you're far more open-minded to being wrong, right? Yeah. And I really think, what you're talking about when I just barely said, well, it's just about data, right? We're extracting data.
Exactly.
Isn't that what everybody does in their business, is they're trying to extract data, the X's and O's, right? So they can dot the I's and cross their T's in their company. But the funny thing is when it comes to the other side of it with humans, a business is more about humans than it is just as much as it is systems and processes, right?
It's true.
So what are the humans like that are operating in those systems and processes? Are they all set up to succeed in those systems and processes with the job that they do, or whatever their duties are with inside your organization? And so I feel like we're getting to the process of really leaving no stones unturned, trying absolute anything and everything that we can to get better internally, whether it's through sales, whether it's through fulfillment, whether it's through the managing style, whether it's through just getting to know how an individual ticks to their core, where their strengths are, so that we can put people in a position to win and succeed. There's been many times in our business where we've shifted people around, like, oh, you're not the best at sales here. Come over here and do some fulfillment stuff. Oh, you're not the best at this. Why don't you come over here and do this? Oh, I know we hired you for the front desk, but here, we're going to put you over here back in this department because you're just a great personality.
Right.
Or whatever it is. We just move pieces around, right? Isn't that the coach's job, is to move pieces around and put the team in a position to win, but also put the individual in a position to win at a high level? Because if the coach put Shaquille O'Neal, I think I've used this before, at the three-point line and said, shoot, you're our guy, you're the game-winning, that would be absolutely idiotic, because everybody knows Shaq's weaknesses is shooting the ball.
Right.
He's great at being tall and dunking, and pulling down rebounds and bodying people up. So put him in a position to win by having him do those things, right?
Right.
And so we're trying to get the intel or information even more so on some of our high-level guys on how they tick, how they operate, where we could place them so that they're putting them in a situation where they can thrive and do something that they're great at, maybe something that they love doing, which would create a greater impact for the company as a whole, for their life as a whole, for the customer as a whole. And really the idea is, how many people can you put in a win-win-win-win situation?
100%.
You, the people that work for you, the customers that do business with you. And really, that's just where we're at right now. It's move money off to the side. It's more service and impact for us at this point. And we're putting a lot of money back into our businesses in order to actually show that, rather than just say that. Have we been perfect? No. Has business beat the hell out of us many, many times? Absolutely. But we come back fighting. We come back every fucking time stronger.
We do.
Every single time.
That's true.
Every time we get our asses handed to us, we know exactly why. We'll make the adjustment. We'll come back stronger. You'll see us fight another fucking day. And then we do that every single year over the course of 20 years, and you come back stronger. Every single time you're in a battle, great things are bound to happen.
Yeah.
And the ingredient that we have no control over, the ingredient you guys all listening that you have no control over, is time. So why don't we forget about all that and just focus on doing all the right things right now? Quit avoiding maybe some areas that you're weak just because it's difficult. Figure out where your actual strengths are. Again, like I said, if I wanted to draw a Mona Lisa, it ain't going to fucking happen. I can try to do that for 50 years. There's somebody that can pick up a pen and do it 10 times better without even fucking trying.
Man. Like, you would become a better artist if you hired a coach and you put all the time into it. But would you be like, your brother? Probably not. He's not naturally gifted there, and he's already put so much time in there, and so I don't know, man.
For him to put time there because he's actually so great at it.
He loves it,
He loves it.
And the thing is I don't think the conclusion on the topic is like, should you double down on strengths and not try and improve weaknesses? And it's like, I don't think that's the conclusion. The conclusion is,
I think
doubling down on strengths is 100% like a smart thing to do, but you don't know what your weaknesses are until you actually do some investigating, some trying, take a personality test, figure some things out. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you hate it just because it's hard, but you actually could like it? Like, you do have to explore things and figure it out, and you got to be open and willing to try things like the personality test.
Yeah.
But once you do know, and you spend some time getting that data, well then, absolutely, double down on your strengths, man. Put yourself and everybody around you in a better position to win.
I think what it comes down to is, the more I'm hearing you kind of talk about it, and you're saying personality test, this, that, the other, like just because I'm not a good artist doesn't mean I can't learn how to be a good reader. Right. I think in general, 99% of human beings, if they applied themselves, could be a good reader.
Yeah.
Right. If 99% of people decided that they wanted to become a runner, they could become a runner.
Yeah.
If 99% of people wanted to become the best artist in the world, crickets. There's only going to be a very, very small percentage that will be able to do that. Right. And so I think some things in terms of personality, like, are you going to take an introvert and make them the best salesperson in the world?
Right.
Potentially. Maybe not, though.
Yeah.
Are you going to take somebody that's outgoing, that's likable, has charisma and say, I'm going to put this person in a situation where they're going to become the best sales rep, I think that individual has a higher probability of success, right? So there are personality traits that I do think that what you're talking about has a lot of merit. I guess how I was looking at is more just general things like running or reading. Like, don't label yourself as I'm not a reader, or I don't listen to podcasts,
100%.
or I don't, No. You can't say that you're not good at something that you've never given full effort to. So if you've never really actually given it time, consistency, and effort, don't say that you're weak there. Everybody's weak in an area that they've given no time, effort, or consistency to. 100%. Everybody. Right? So give it the time, effort, and consistency that it needs to show you the result. And if you don't like the result, shift to something else. Or if you don't like the result because you've put in half-ass effort, then put in more effort and get a better result. Whatever it is, we all just need to be smart enough to start auditing and evaluating self is really what it comes down to, and having true and honest conversations with yourself. Like, it is what it is. Maybe somebody would love to be the best salesperson in the world, but it's more of a fantasy because they're just more introvert or whatever it is. And it's just, oh, that would be cool. That's a thought, right? I just don't want things to remain a thought. I want people to really give true effort in all areas, because that gives them what? More data about self. And when you have more data about self, you by default are more what? Self-aware. And if you're more self-aware in the areas that you're great and the areas that you're weak, you by default are becoming a greater individual because you have more data about you. And you could put yourself in situations where you have higher probabilities of success when you have the data about yourself. You could remove the areas where you don't perform the best from your life and not put yourself in those situations. So try everything, give it honest effort, extract the data, know more about you so that you could become great.
Absolutely. When you know it's a strength, double down.
Yes.
But don't double down don't rule something out that it's a weakness when you don't actually know, right? Like, but some things you do just know. Right? Like, for example,
artist, like I just said too.
Well, take my little nephew, Andy, right? Love the kid. He'd never be a bodybuilder, no matter how much he wanted to be a bodybuilder, right? Like, genetically, he is a wiry, kid, right? Could he be still strong? Could he get stronger? Could he put more muscle on? Could he be a great runner? Like, yeah. But he could never go compete in like a bodybuilding competition, you know what I mean? Because no matter how much muscle that kid put on, he could spend 20 years, 4 workouts a day, eating 40,000 calories a day, whatever it is, right? To become bigger, and his body's only going to do what it's going to do. He's never going to accomplish that, right? So my whole point of that is like don't double down on trying to be something that you want, but you just know physically and mentally and emotionally everything, you're not going to achieve that. But then if you got a body type like, whatever, the dudes in our gym, like Jordan and his brother, like, they have the stature, the build, and everything to go and compete in these shows, but they're not going to go be like professional runners. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to lug all that muscle and weight around, and actually they can go get faster and they can go get better at running, and they could go and compete in some things, and they probably could, but they're never going to win world championships, right? So, don't rule things out and label things just because when you don't know, but when you do know, you're going to get so much further in whatever you're trying to accomplish if you double down on things that you actually know are like your strengths, like genetically, mentally, physically, everything, right?
And that's where the honesty comes in,
has
right?
To be.
Like where you're having to be really honest with yourself. Have I given this true effort? Is this something that I could even do if I gave it true effort? And in some cases, we live in a fantasy land and we want to be this thing that we're really not, right? And so it's a tough conversation because it really starts and ends with self-awareness, because if you're not self-aware and you're saying, well, you know what you're good, if somebody's just not self-aware because they've been in zombie mode their whole life, I don't know what I'm good at, or I don't know what I'm bad at, because you haven't tried shit. Right? So if you don't know what you're good at and you don't know what you're bad, like, start doing more shit. Right? That's really what it comes down to. If you say, I don't know what I'm good at, you could probably take a look at your life and realize, well, I haven't really done a whole lot of shit, so how would I even know what I'm good at? Because I haven't done enough shit to have the data. Right? And so put yourself in different, unique situations so that you can see how you respond, how you react, and how you perform, so that you could figure out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are.
And sometimes you do got to just get out of the fucking hamster wheel, like this Tim Ferriss dude did, and like talked about in his book, man. Like until you actually just start getting out of the hamster wheel and looking at things a little differently, you're just going to stay in it. You know, like dude was doing 15 hours a day until he finally hit a point where he's like, I can't do this anymore. He didn't know what his real true strength was. He just knew he wanted to build a business and have financial independence and freedom and success. So he's doing everything, right? And like, he really wasn't doing that great. He's barely surviving doing 15 hours a day. But when he finally was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm going to just detonate. I'm going to explode. What do they call that when you like combust? I'm going to spontaneously combust.
Yeah.
But basically when he finally got to the point where he's like, I'm just going to delegate everything else and only do this one thing I know I'm good at. Like, that's when everything changed for him. But he had to get off the hamster wheel in order to do it. And so that's what everybody needs to kind of do sometimes, is like get out of the weeds, delegate some things so you can actually have time to discover what it is you love, enjoy, and you're good at. Then you can start doubling down on it.
Yeah, when you hate your situation enough, like he did, he was willing to do an extreme change. And when he made an extreme change, he saw extreme changes.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just think people are scared for the extreme. People conform a little too easily. People let their emotions get the best of them a little too much. But when you're finally fed up, you don't give a fuck what happens.
Right.
And you'll rip the Band-Aid off and live with the result. Once you're okay living with whatever else the other result is, as long as it's not the result that you're currently sitting in, then you'll make the change. And usually it's not as bad as what you thought it was going to be.
Right.
And so everybody listening to this has a change that needs to be made. I know I have changes that I still need to make. Kel has changes he needs to make. Everybody has changes. We're always a work in progress. So ask yourself this question: what's one thing that I need to remove? What's one thing that I could change right now that I know would serve me, would serve my family, it doesn't matter how big or small. Yeah. It doesn't matter how big or small. It just matters that you take some form of action.
Yeah. I still haven't emailed Kelly about doing our personality test. I'm going to do it when we get done with this podcast.
When we get done, do it. Yeah. We talked about that yesterday or 2 days. I mean, it wasn't very, very recent.
No, I think it would be good. At least 8-10 of us at the top, we need to do it. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, let's do it. No doubt. So, guys, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. I thought it was pretty good, and we look pretty cool.
I like it where it's like, we're not like, there's no right or wrong answer. We're just picking something apart to kind of come, what's the conclusion? Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of cool.
Yeah, we said how it's right and wrong. So we'll let you guys determine. You know, can the same thing be right and wrong?
Yeah,
you know,
I think so.
I think so.
That's what my therapist used to say. There's no right or wrong answer. You just have.
It's just an answer.
Yeah, just need to make a move, man.
So keep kicking ass, guys. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.
Peace.